Yeah, revolutionary greetings once again, comrades, to our revolutionary class where we actually read. Currently, we have started by reading the book Defeating Dictators by Dr. George Aiti. And we've been doing this on our Sundays for 2 hours. And yes, today we are in chapter 1. Probably we'll be finishing chapter 1 today. Then we'll be getting to chapter 2 by our next week as we move like that. So once again, permit me to appreciate and recognize members who are with us. Brother Taiwo, Brother Sir Windog, Brother Kama, Brother The King, and Brother Hegel Mwash. Prof, we hope our sisters will be joining us as we move along. And yes, to those who will be viewing or listening to this recording, feel most welcome. Feel free to engage us in all media platforms possible, either via commenting in our YouTube channel once you upload the link, or by asking any question. But we also invite you to join us every Sunday. This class is actually an initiative which is a collaborative initiative between the Consciousism Study Group through the CSG or Consciousism Study Group Pan-African Library. We have a library where we actually share Pan-Africa or Afrocentric books written by Blacks or Africans in all aspects, both from spirituality, economics, politics, social, and even going back to civilization and history. So this is a library that started as an initiative of Consciousism Study Group like around 4 months ago, and we've been able so far to share over 3,000 soft copy books. We actually share 50 copies every day, and that's what I do every morning for around 2 hours. And it's also a collaborative effort of virtual library, which is also led by Brother Hegel Mwash.
Can everybody hear the host?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, I think he may have lost his connection.
Hello, can you hear me?
Is the class out?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
now?
Yeah, sorry, there was a blackout over here, so my internet switched off. So as I was saying, we read paragraph per paragraph, and apologies for what has happened. So what we do is not paragraph, page per page. So I'll start in my list with Brother King. Are you able to do reading? Or you can, Brother King, can you
Your
hear me?
connection is, yes, we can hear you, but although it was choppy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So if you can hear me, then we can start off. What we always is
But your connection is very choppy. Your connection is choppy.
Then
Your connection is not clear.
so I'm not that clear.
It's choppy. It goes
Okay.
in and out, and it's garbled.
I don't know how to try to help that, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can, but it gets garbled.
Hello. Okay. Now what I'm saying is that let's read until we finish failed states. Somebody read paragraph 1, page 1. Somebody pick to the next page. Or Brother Taiwo, you can read for us the whole. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear parts of what you said. What did you want me to do?
I want you to read for us this text under failed states. Can you be able?
Okay, I can read that now.
Okay, please do.
Okay. Every year, the social and economic toll of despotism is driven home by the publication of two indices. The first is the Index of Failed States, drawn up by Foreign Policy magazine in collaboration with the Fund for Peace, an independent research organization. Using 12 indicators of state cohesion and performance, compiled through a close examination of more than 30,000 publicly available sources, the index ranks 177 states in order from most to least at risk of failure. In the 2010 index, most of the 20 failed states at the bottom are ruled by despotic regimes. Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan may be regarded as exceptions because of ongoing wars in 2009. The majority of the failed states, 12 out of 20, are in sub-Saharan Africa. And 11 of those 12 African countries are ruled by despots. Index of Failed States 2010. Somalia is at the top, followed by Chad, Sudan, Zimbabwe, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Central African Republic, Guinea. That's what I can see so far.
Can we proceed if you can see?
Okay. After Guinea, we have Pakistan, Haiti, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Nigeria, Yemen, Myanmar, that's Burma, Ethiopia, East Timor, North Korea, and Niger Republic. Okay. Even more telling is the United Nations Human Development Index. Of the 24 at the bottom, a staggering 22 are in sub-Saharan Africa. Human Development Index 2010. Togo is at the top, followed by Malawi, Benin, Timor-Leste, Ivory Coast, Zambia, Eritrea, Senegal, Rwanda, Gambia, Liberia, Guinea, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Burundi. Can you scroll up, please? Okay, after Burundi, we have Chad, we have Democratic Republic of the Congo, Burkina Faso, Mali, Central African Republic. Do we have more?
Yes, we have more.
Okay, I need to
Three
have
more.
this shared.
But it's not on the screen, unfortunately.
Sierra Leone.
Yeah, I don't have access to the source, and
Yeah.
it's on screen. I wish I had access to the source. I think the host doesn't have audio.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have the source that they can share?
Yeah.
Mr.
I
Hegel,
can
you
share.
are
Mine
also a
is a hard
co-host.
copy.
Oh, yours is a hard copy. Okay. We have to wait for the host to come back. It doesn't have audio.
Yeah. How do we sensitize him that he does not have audio? Any technician in the group?
Yeah, I think that the challenge might be from the host side. If I understand they're facing a blackout, so if they don't have good connectivity, they will not be able to join the call. Okay, somebody said it's not technical.
Okay.
I think the host has dropped off, and Mr. Mwash has been made the host now. Okay, I think the host is back. Okay, the host is back.
Hello, Brother Taiwo, can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Can anyone of you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
making
you.
every one of you a co-host, and I'm making every one of you a co-host, and I am sharing the book now in the chat so that everybody can have a book by their desktop or laptop, so that in case I go off, you can read from your devices. Is that okay?
Yeah, let me see if I can access that. Okay,
I
I don't know the
will
book yet.
broadcast list. Brother Taiwo,
Yes.
are you the broadcast list? You got the invitation of this meeting via?
Got the invitation through WhatsApp.
Directly from me.
Yes, from you, yes.
Then I shared the book with alongside that invitation. I had attached
Okay,
this copy,
okay.
so please check.
Okay, let me see if I can open it, please.
But all members here have a copy of this book, so let me make all of them calls that they can share anytime I'm out.
Okay, I think I see the book.
So we can even read via our own devices because you have a copy of this, soft copy.
Yes, I'm trying to open that now and go to the right page to read. I have to. What page am I looking for?
Page
Page 32.
Page 32.
No, page
Okay, let me go to page 32.
Right.
Page.
Are you able to share your screen here?
Yes, I have to get to the page first, and let me see if I can. Okay, page 32. I have to go to the. Let me see. I'm trying to locate the page now. Okay, let me try to share. Let me try to share now. Oof. Share. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to. Can you all see my screen?
No, you're not sharing.
I'm not sharing yet.
Yeah, you're not sharing yet.
Okay, let me. Hold on. Okay. I am on my I am on my laptop. I'm sorry, on my. Let me see.
Is there any member here who has the book and also can help share?
If anybody can share, that would work. Then I would just read, because I'm on my phone, and you cannot see my screen.
Brother Taiwo, you are not sharing.
Okay, I'm trying my best to share, but I think I'm sharing, but nobody can see it. It seems.
Probably.
But can I go on and read what I'm seeing?
Yeah, go on, because everybody has a copy of this book.
Okay. Let
Go
me
ahead.
continue to read. So after I mentioned the The Human Development Index, I think the bottom 22, 20 of which are in Africa. The next text is, despite its immense wealth of mineral resources, Africa remains mired in abject poverty, misery, deprivation, and chaos. The World Bank adjusted its yardstick for extreme poverty from $1 to $1.25 a day, which means that 389 million of the 875 million people in sub-Saharan Africa live in poverty in 2005. Millions of lives have been lost, economies have collapsed, and whole states have failed under brutal repression. The toll of despotism has been especially devastating for Africa. Africa is poor because she is not free. However, a failed state evolves through various stages. It begins as a vampire state, metastasizes into a coconut republic, and then finally implodes, becoming a failed or collapsed state.
Now, we will go ahead, based on that last statement, we'll go ahead to read the vampire state as well before we open a discussion. And I'll ask anybody who is able to do the reading to read for us from the vampire state.
I can read, if that's okay.
Please go ahead, Sister Tapua. Do you have a copy open on your phone?
Yes, I have.
Okay, please read from your side, because mine I'm sharing, but my network can always go down. So read from your phone as well.
Okay. Starting from vampire states. Anyone who gets to the presidency ends up with way more than he had before, whilst the poor, oh, someone is moving the screen, so I can't read. Oh, good. I'm back. Sorry about that. We're starting with a quotation from Roberto Pedroza, a newspaper vendor in Mexico City. And he says, anyone who gets to the presidency ends up with way more than he had before, whilst the poor and working class are the ones always left behind. The most remarkable aspect of despotism is the rapid deterioration of the institution of government. Government, as it is known in the West, does not exist in countries ruled by despots. Leaving aside the democratic requirement that a government must be of the people, by the people, and for the people, one expects a government, at a minimum, to care for and be responsive to the needs of the people, or at least to perform some basic service for its people. But even these minimal requirements are often lacking in a dictatorship, where government as an entity is totally divorced from the people and perceived by those running it as a vehicle to serve, to fleece the people. Dishonesty, thievery, and embezzlement pervade the public sector. Public servants embezzle state funds, and high-ranking ministers are on the take. Government then becomes irrelevant to the people. What then exists is a vampire state, a government hijacked by a phalanx of bandits, gangsters, crooks, scoundrels who use the machinery of the state to enrich themselves. Their cronies, supporters, members of their own ethnic, racial, or religious group, to exclude everyone else. It is an apartheid-like system based on the politics of exclusion. One is poor if one does not belong to that charmed circle. The richest people in Africa and many third world countries are the ruling vampire elites and government ministers. And quite often, the chief bandit is the head of state himself. Examples of vampire states abound. In fact, one can characterize all communist states as such. They suck the economic vitality out of the people for the enrichment of the ruling communist apparatus. Even in post-communist Russia, corruption has become a nearly insurmountable obstacle to the country's economic development. Berlin-based NGO Transparency International rates Russia 146th out of the 180 nations in its Corrupt Perception Index, saying bribe-taking is worth more than 300 billion a year. The PRI party, which ruled Mexico for more than 70 years, though not communist, is another example. Its replacement was scarcely better. Said Lino Corrido, finance manager for Vince Fox's 2000 presidential campaign, it is evident that he, Vince Fox, got rich during his 6 years in office in a very shameless and cynical way. Mexican presidents are limited to 1 6-year term. Their last year in office is cynically derided by Mexicans as, I hope I can say it, el ano del dinero, year of the money. That is when Mexican presidents bare their fangs and suck as much as they can in a frenzy. Carlos Saneros de Gortari, who served from 1988 to 1994, was probably the most bloodthirsty. His name became synonymous with fraud, corruption, and economic devastation, and he fled in disgrace into a self-imposed exile in Ireland. The New York Times reported that in 2002, Swiss banking authorities found more than $100 million sitting in a Swiss bank account once controlled by his brother, Raul Salinas, and froze it. The loot was held in the name of a Cayenne Island Shell Corporation, Troca Ltd, secretly controlled by Mr. Salinas. The regimes of several other Latin American countries ruled by oligarchs and caudillos in the 1980s and 1990s can also be characterized as vampire states. Their rule deepened social and economic inequalities, provoking social discontent and sparking revolutionary movements in such countries as Colombia and Nicaragua. Widespread government dysfunction, corruption, and economic despair forced many Latin Americans to migrate and settle in the United States, often illegally. Known as the undocumented, their number now exceeds 10 million. In the Middle East, the classic example of a vampire state is Saudi Arabia. Others include regimes in Tunisia under the ousted dictator Ben Ali, Egypt under Hosni Mubarak, Iraq under the late Saddam Hussein, Iran, Syria, and Yemen. More examples can be found in Africa, where the state has been reduced to a mafia-like bazaar in which anyone with an official designation can pillage at will. Dictators seize and monopolize both political and economic power to advance their own selfish and criminal interests, not to develop their economies. And they don't care about the poor. Their overarching obsession is to amass personal wealth, gaudily displayed in flashy automobiles, fabulous mansions, bevies of frowning women, helping the poor promote economic growth or improve the standard of living of their people is anathema to the ruling elites. Food for the people, people's power, houses for the masses are simply empty slogans that are designed to fool the people and the international community. Nigeria is the mother of all vampire states. Oh no. Between 1970 and 2004, more than $450 billion in oil revenue flowed into Nigerian government coffers, but much of it was looted by Nigeria's reckless military bandits. Malam Nuhu Ribadu, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, set up in 2003, confirmed the theft of $412 billion over the period from 1960 to 1999. We cannot be accurate down to the last figure, but that is our projection, said Osita Nwaja, a commission spokesman. For 18 months, from February 1919 to August 2000, Nigeria's vampire state was paralyzed by legislators wrangling over perks. Its 109 senators and 360 representatives passed just 5 pieces of legislation, including budget that was held up for 5 months. Immediately upon taking office, the legislators voted themselves hefty allowances, including a 5 billion naira, which is $50 million furniture allowance for their official residences and offices. The now impeached ex-chairman of the Senate from President Olusegun Obasanjo's own People's Democratic Party, Chuba Okadibo, was the most greedy, according to New Africa. Quotation. As Senate president, he controlled 24 official vehicles, but ordered 8 more at a cost of $290,000. He was also found to have spent $225,000 on garden furniture for his government house, $304,000 on furniture for the house itself, $120,000 over the authorized budget. Bought without authority, a massive electricity generator whose price he had inflated to $135,000 and accepted a secret payment of $208,000 from public funds, whose purpose included the purchase of Christmas gifts. And it gets better. President Obasanjo went after the loot that former President Sani Abacha and his family had stashed abroad. There was much public fanfare regarding the sum of about $709 million and another $144 million recovered from Abacha's and the former president's henchmen. But then, this recovered loot itself was quickly re-looted. The Senate Public Accounts Committee found only $6.8 million and $2.8 million of the recovered loot in the Central Bank of Nigeria. In case after case, government officials in the developing countries get rich by misusing their positions. Faithful only to their foreign bank accounts, these officials These official buccaneers have no sense of morality, justice, or even patriotism. They kill and maim their own people and destroy their own countries to acquire and protect booty because functionally illiterate, they're incapable of using the skills and knowledge they acquire from education to get rich in the private sector. Needless to say, they are derided by some experts as extractors, people who squandered wealth without building for the future. The inviolate ethic of the vampire elites is self-aggrandizement and self-perpetuation in power. To achieve these objectives, they take over and subvert every key institution of government: the civil service, judiciary, military, media, and banking. As a result, state institutions and commissions become paralyzed. Laxity, ineptitude, and unprofessionalism thus flourish in the public sector. Of course, the country may have a police force and judiciary system to catch and prosecute the thieves, but the police are themselves highway robbers who are under orders to protect the looters in power, and many of the judges themselves are crooks. Obviously, there are no checks against brigandage. The worst offender is the military, the most trenchantly perverted institution, especially in Latin America and Africa. In many normal civilized society, the function of the military is to defend the territorial integrity of the nation and its people against external aggression. But under despotic regimes, the military is instead locked in combat with the very people it is supposed to defend. Witness the barbaric brutalities meted out against street protesters by Iran's Basij militiamen in June 2009, or those of North Korean security guards against market traders in December 2009. And think of Muammar Gaddafi's sending jet fighters to bomb street demonstrators in February 2011. And we wish to inform you that tomorrow we will be killed with our families. Philip Gorech writes that across much of Africa, a soldier's uniform and gun had long been regarded and are still seen as little more than a license to engage in banditry. Wole Soyinka handed the post-colonial soldiers a blistering rebuke. He says, the military dictatorships of the African continent, parasitic, unproductive, totally devoid of social commitment or vision, are an expression of this exclusionist mentality of a handful. So are these immediately post-colonial monopolies that parade themselves as single-party states. To exclude the sentiment plurality of any society from the right of decision in the structuring of their own lives is an attempt to anesthetize, turn comatose, indeed idiotize society, which of course is supreme irony, since the proven idiots of our post-colonial experience have been, indeed still are, largely to be found amongst the military dictators. A simple rule of thumb on development has emerged. The index of the economic well-being of a developing country is inversely related to the length of time the military holds political power. The longer it stays in power, the greater the economic devastation. Again, a few exceptions may be noted, as in the case of Augusto Pinochet of Chile, but exceptions do not make the rule. Meanwhile, the vampire state wobbles as it lurches from one crisis to another. Its legitimacy is openly questioned. Some sections of the population are in open revolt, and others may even mount roadblocks to keep out state officials, as occurred in Latin American countries in the 1990s. Such was also the case in Libya in February 2011. The despot barks orders but is routinely ignored. His ruling vampire elites, clueless about how to resolve the economic crisis, resolve to desperate measures to keep things under control, but they fail to arrest the deterioration. They readily give up and flex their muscle, daring anyone to hold them accountable or take power away from them. Steadily, the vampire state, infused with arrogance of power, hardens into a coconut republic and provokes a rebellion. Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and elsewhere in Africa and the Arab world.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Sister Tapua?
Yes. Yes, my brother.
Thank you for your reading. Can somebody read for us Coconut Republic? Then we will start our discussion. Anybody who can read for us Coconut Republic? Is there anybody who can read for us Coconut Republic?
How long is it? I could continue.
Okay, continue. It's very brief. Just continue.
Okay. Coconut republics. This invites a distinction. In a banana republic, one might sleep on a banana peel, but things do work for people now and then, albeit inefficiently and unreliably. Electric supply is sporadic, and the water tap has a mind of its own. Occasionally, it might spit some water and then change its mind. Buses operate according to their own internal clock. By the grace of God or Allah, a bus might arrive belching thick black smoke. Food and gasoline are generally available but expensive. If one is willing to contend with occasional long lines, the police are helpful when they're bribed and will then protect the people by catching real crooks. There is petty corruption. Now and then, $1 million here and $1 million there might be embezzled. Such a banana republic often slips into suspended animation or arrested development. A coconut republic, on the other hand, is ruthlessly inefficient, lethal, and eventually implodes. Instead, lost. Sorry, I'm lost. I think we moved. Oh, okay.
Sister Tapua?
Yes. Okay, I'm restarting on a coconut republic.
Yes, a Coconut Republic.
Right. A coconut republic, on the other hand, is ruthlessly inefficient, lethal, and eventually implodes. Instead of a banana peel, one might step on a live grenade. Here, common sense has been butchered. An arrogant tomfoolery rampages with impunity. the entire notion of governance has been turned completely on its head by the ruling vampire elites who wield absolute power, commit crimes, and plunder with supercilious arrogance. They are not answerable or accountable to anybody, and one dares not ask. Impunity reigns supreme. It is here where one finds tyrants chanting people's revolution and freedom while standing on the necks of the people. A revolution is a major catalysmic event that brings about an overthrow, of the ancient regime. It makes a clean break with the existing way of doing things and establishes a new way or order. In politics, for example, a revolution occurs when the subjugated and exploited class rises up to overthrow the oppressor, as occurred with the American and French Revolution. But in a coconut republic, it is the other way around. It is the dictators who are chanting revolution. Have you ever noticed that those third world leaders who vociferously claim they're fighting against terrorism in order to receive Western aid, are themselves sponsors of state terrorism against their own people? In a coconut republic, the rule of law is a farce. Bandits are in charge. They're victims in jail. The police and security forces protect the ruling vampire elites, not the people. The chief bandit is the head of the state himself. He and his family and his henchmen have a constant supply of electricity, and their water taps run all the time. The people can collect rainwater. There are inexhaustible supplies of food and gasoline for them, but not for the people. There are no buses for the people, period. Those shiny buses that ply the roads are for vampire elites. The people can walk. The Republic sits atop vast resources of oil and exports oil, but there's no gasoline for the people since the country's oil refineries have broken down. Funds are earmarked for repairs. Funds earmarked for repairs have been stolen, and refined petroleum products must be imported. The country may be rich in mineral deposits such as diamonds, gold, coltan, yet the mineral wealth has produced misery or a curse. Here are some examples of a life in a coconut republic. Hugo Chavez of Venezuela forces everyone to listen to his hours-long tirades, but dozes off when he listens to them himself. Supamuruat Niyazov, the late president for life of Turkmenistan, erected statues and portraits of himself everywhere and named cities, airports, and even a meteorite after himself. And months and days of the week were named after him and his family. A family feast was celebrated every day. When a presidential election was held in Uzbekistan in 2005, President Islam A. Karimov's three opponents each publicly endorsed him. In the 2009 election, all four parties in this race staunchly supported Karimov. Asked if there was any real political opposition and competition in his country, Karimov replied that the 2009 race was for parliament's lower chambers, had injected genuine competition into the process, and largely become four parties have vocally criticized one another. Uganda's agriculture minister, Kibirige Sembunya, declared that all the poor should be arrested because they hinder us from performing our developmental duties. It is hard to lead the poor. The poor cannot lead the rich. They should be eliminated. He advised local leaders to arrest poor people arrest poor people in their areas of jurisdiction. He died 4 years later. A former minister of finance was found hiding, where else? In a coconut tree. Zambia's former finance minister, Katele Kalumba, was arrested and charged with theft after the police found him hiding in a tree near his rural home. Mr. Kalumba, who had been on the run for 4 months, is being charged in connection with some $33 million that vanished whilst he was in office. The late president of Liberia, General Samuel Doe, summoned his finance minister only to be reminded by the aides that he had already executed him. Tanzania's corrupt Tsar, Dr. Edward Hosea, was himself implicated in a corruption scandal involving the award of 125.5 million contract to supply 100 megawatts of emergency power to a Texas-based company that did not exist. Coconut security forces in a coconut republic. The police are scarcely professional. Tell a police officer that you saw a minister stealing the people's money, and it is you who he will arrest. After the brutal murder of the politician Roberto Uko in 1990, the Washington Post reported that, according to the Kenyan police, Foreign Minister Roberto Uko was presumed to have broken his own leg, shot himself in the head, set himself afire. 2 years earlier, Kenyan officials suggested that a British tourist, Julie Ward, lopped off her own head and one of her legs before setting herself aflame. The ever-ready security forces can unleash the full force of their fury on unarmed civilians with batons, tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets. But how brave are the security forces really? Ambushed by a bunch of ragtag castle rustlers, Kenya's elite presidential guards quickly surrendered John Wandeto, a reporter for the People's Republic, to a newspaper in Kitale, Rift Valley Province. Oh, I think I misread that. Sorry, I'm going to restart from the ever-ready security. The ever-ready security forces can unleash the full force of their fury on unarmed civilians with batons, tear gas, water cannons, and rubber bullets. But how brave are the security forces really? Ambushed by a bunch of ragtag cattle rustlers, Kenya's elite presidential guard quickly surrendered. John Wandeto, a reporter for the People's Daily, a newspaper in Kitale, Rift Valley Province, published a story in March 6, 1999 edition with the title, Militiamen Rout 8 Crack Unit Officials. Shock as Moi's men surrender meekly. Wandeto was arrested and sentenced to 18 months in prison on what the court described as alarmist report. And the mother of all security forces, when the African Union peacekeepers based at the edge of Haskanita, a small town in southern Darfur, came under sustainable rebel assault on September 29, 2007, the AU soldiers fled. According to The Economist, the 10 killed, at least 40 fled into the bush. The attackers looted the compound before Sudanese troops arrived to rescue surviving peacekeepers. Coconut elections are essentially farcical elections in which the incumbent writes the rules, then serves as the player, the referee, and the goalkeeper. The deck is hideously staked against the opposition candidates who are starved of funds, denied access to state-controlled media, brutalized by government-hired thugs as the police watch. Opposition parties may be banned too. By contrast, the incumbent enjoys access to enormous state resources, state media, vehicles, the police, the military, the civil servants are all commandeered to ensure his re-election. Further, the entire electoral process itself is rigged. Voter rolls are padded with ruling party supporters and phantom voters, whilst opposition supporters are purged. The electoral commissioner is in the pocket of the ruling party, as are the judges who might settle any election dispute. During the, oh, it's gone. My text is gone. Sorry, guys. My text is gone. I've lost my text. Hello? Hello, is there anyone there? Oh.
Yes. Yes. Can you see it?
No, I've lost my text. I can see a comrade's photo on the screen. Oh.
What about now?
No, I can still see my comrade on the screen. Comrade Tayo.
Okay. You cannot see the screen now being shared?
No, I can't see the screen. I only have Comrade Tayo.
Let me try again.
All right, thank you.
How about now?
Sorry.
You may need to scroll.
Maybe someone else who
Somebody
can
can
see
share?
the could read, yeah.
I can take off from where you left off.
Thank you. That's all right.
But try to mute yourself because there's an echo here. So let me start with coconut elections. Coconut elections are essentially farcical elections in which the incumbent writes the rules and then serves as a player, the referee, and the goalkeeper. The deck is hideously stacked against the opposition candidates who are starved of funds, denied access to the state-controlled media, and brutalized by government-hired thugs as the police watch. Opposition parties may be banned too. By contrast, the incumbent enjoys access to enormous state resources, state media, vehicles, the police, the military, and civil servants are all commandeered to ensure his re-election. Further, the entire electoral process itself is rigged. Voter rolls are padded with ruling party supporters and phantom voters, while opposition supporters are purged. The electoral commissioner is in the pocket of the ruling party, as are the judges, who might settle any election disputes. During the election campaign, posters of the incumbent are everywhere, while pro-government thugs terrorize the populace and anyone perceived to be a supporter of the opposition parties. Innocent civilians are forced marched to attend the incumbent parties' rallies, while opposition rallies are violently disrupted and opposition supporters are brutalized and even killed as the police look on. On election day, the ruling party resorts to various tricks to steal the election. Ballot papers do not arrive on time, inducing frustrated opposition supporters to leave polling stations. Ballot boxes may eventually arrive, but are already stuffed with votes for the incumbent. Mayoral elections were held in Kampala, Uganda on February 18th, 2011. When the polls opened at 7 a.m., ballot boxes were already full of pre-ticketed ballots for the ruling National Resistance Movement candidate, Pete Samatimba. This led to the cancellation of the results. Queried, Samatimba denied any involvement. This could have been done by my opponents to discredit me, he said. And if during the vote count, the opposition appears to be winning, the process can be halted and the ballot boxes transported to a secret location where the votes are counted in camera. Most often, posted election results do not reflect actual voting. This was the case in Ghana's 1996 elections, where Major Emmanuel Erskine, a challenger to the brutal regime of Jerry Rawlings, did not even get one single vote in his own constituency. That is, the results indicated that he did not vote for himself, and his wife and 4 children did not vote for him. After he complained bitterly about the rigging, the Electoral Commissioner tossed 6 votes his way. Here's the short list of instances that indicate coconut elections. The electoral equipment for coconut elections, the results of which are stolen anyway, was itself stolen. Nigeria, December 9th, 2010. Both candidates, Laurent Gbagbo and Alassane Ouattara, claimed victory and installed themselves as presidents after Ivory Coast November 2010 elections. For the November 27th, 2010 elections in Myanmar, Burma, military rulers bestowed upon their country a new flag, a new seal, and a new anthem. The old flags were to be lowered by people born on a Tuesday, and the new flags were to be raised by people born on a Wednesday. Then all the old flags were to be burned. Many parties were blocked from participating by fees set so high that in many districts, only government-backed candidates could register, by stipulations that the military could allot close to 1/4 of all seats after the election took place, and by the harassment and threatening of opposition candidates who tried against all odds to compete. No international observers were permitted, and no foreign journalists were allowed in. The military junta declared victory even before voting started. At the time of the August 25, 2003 elections in Rwanda, opposition leader Faustin Twagiramungu found his campaign stymied at every turn by government security forces. His rallies were canceled, his workers arrested, and his brochures seized. On the eve of the voting, police arrested 12 of Twagiramungu's provincial organizers, saying they were preparing election day violence. Additionally, in Mr. Twagiramungu's hometown, soldiers reportedly looked at ballot papers and ordered those who voted the wrong way to try again. For the August 2010 elections, preparations for the September victory celebration by the incumbent despot, Paul Kagame, began before the voting date. The year 2010 reaped a harvest of coconut elections in Belarus, Burkina Faso, Myanmar, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast, and Rwanda. No incumbent lost an election. Belarus, a country of 10 million, held its presidential elections on December 19, 2010. Long-term dictator Alexander Lukashenko, who had been in power for 16 years, won handily. His government controls media. The opposition candidates were denied airtime. An agency called the KGB watched over the people. Intimidation was the order of the day. The government machine that pressured people into early voting was in place, and those who failed to vote early were threatened with the loss of their jobs in the state sector. Lukashenko won nearly 80% of the votes, and his closest rival, 1.8%. Opposition activists and critical journalists denounced the vote as fraudulent, and over 10,000 demonstrators were poured into the streets in a protest march toward Independence Square in the heart of Minsk. But heavily armed security and police forces unleashed their full fury on the demonstrators, who were savagely beaten. 7 of the 9 opposition candidates were arrested, and over 600 protesters were taken into custody. The opposition candidate, Vladimir Neklyayev, who received 1.8% of the vote, was beaten unconscious and rushed to the hospital. While he was being treated for head wounds, he was abducted by several men in civilian clothes. Also severely beaten and rushed to a hospital was another presidential candidate, Andrei Samikov. And that was the reaction. And what was the reaction of the head of the Central Election Commission, Lydia Emosheva, who was appointed by Lukashenko? According to an article in Der Spiegel, she said that her office was aware of only very few complaints about the election. Naturally, coconut reform, it is clear that the vampire state or the coconut republic must be reformed and replaced with a well-functioning state. To establish one, reform is needed in many areas: in the political system, the economic system, the judicial system, the educational system, and the electoral system. But reform is anathema to the ruling vampire elites and coconut heads, for it would threaten their lucrative businesses and their hold on power. Ask them to privatize inefficient state enterprises, and they will sell the companies to themselves and their cronies at fire sale prices. Examples are Uganda under Yoweri Museveni and Egypt under Hosni Mubarak. Saeed Mohammed Al-Ghanam, the former director of legal research in Egypt's Ministry of Interior. The Mubarak era will be known in the history of Egypt as the era of thievery. Ask them to develop their economies and they will develop their pockets. Ask them to seek foreign investment and they will seek a foreign country in which to invest their loot. Ask them to enforce the rule of law and they will force the law to respect their whims, said The Economist. In Zimbabwe, the thieves are in charge and their victims face prosecution. Ask them to trim the bloated bureaucracies and cut government spending, and they will establish a ministry of less government spending. Ask them to establish a market-based economy and place more emphasis on the private sector, and they will create a ministry of private enterprise, as Ghana did in 2002. Ask them to reform their abominable political and economic systems, and they will perform the coconut boogie. 1 swing forward, 3 swings back, a jerk in the right, and a tumble to land hard on a frozen Swiss bank account. Swiss authorities froze the bank accounts of Laurent Gbagbo of Ivory Coast, Zine El Abidine Ben Ali of Tunisia, Hosni Mubarak of Egypt, and Muammar Gaddafi of Libya in 2011. Ask them to establish a democratic pluralism, and they will create surrogate parties, appoint their own electoral commissioners, empanel a gang of lackeys to write the constitution, inflate the voters' register, manipulate the election rules, and hold coconut elections to return themselves to power. Even African children could see through this chicanery and fraud. Said Adam Maiga from Mali said, "We must put an end to the demagoguery. You have parliaments, but they are used as democratic decoration. Reform becomes a charade. The reform process has stalled through vexatious chicanery, willful deception, and vaunted acrobatics. The ruling vampire elites and the coconut heads are just not interested in reform, period. They benefit from the rotten status quo, but without reform, their countries could implode or collapse as a Tunisian-style revolution. In fact, the adamant refusal of despots to reform their odious and dysfunctional political systems has ignited revolutions. Nicaragua. In 1979, a revolutionary movement called the Sandinistas, led by Daniel Ortega, ousted from power Anastasio Somoza, whose family had ruled the country since 1936. Wow. Indonesia. In 1998, Suharto, who had held power for 32 years, was forced to resign following the Asian financial crisis. In May 1999, Time Asia estimated Suharto's family fortune of $15 billion in cash, shares, corporate assets, real estate, jewelry, and fine art. Of this, $9 billion was reported to have been deposited in an Austrian bank. Suharto was placed highest on Transparency International's list of corrupt leaders, with an alleged misappropriation of between $15 and $35 billion during his 32-year presidency. His ouster led to the breakaway attempts by East Timor and Aceh. However, Africa abounds with examples of despots who refused to heed the call to reform, and as a result, saw their countries implode in violent vortex of chaos, carnage, and destruction, ending with their own deaths. Somalia in 1991, Rwanda in 1994, Liberia 1991, Zaire 1996, among others. The cost of rebuilding each country devastated by war is in the billions. Rebuilding Liberia alone will cost at least $15 billion. The coconut cure, alas, there is a cure for coconut heads. In Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, there's a place called the Magic Corner, where all and sundry, including politicians, come to be relieved or cured of their problems. Even those top leaders of the government come to that tree, said Shabuni Haruni, a private security guard. Yes, during the elections. Upon payment of a small fee, a traditional healer will take a patient to a huge baobab tree, reputed to be the abode of ancestral spirits. Patients remove their shoes and kneel in front of the tree with their eyes closed. At one session described by Washington Post correspondent Carl Vick, Rikia Selingia, a traditional healer, passed a coconut around and around the head of her kneeling client. The coconut went around the man's left arm, then the right, then each leg. When she handed the coconut to the client, Musa Norris, he held it in onto a stone. It shattered, releasing his problems to the winds. I think that's the end of that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Despite of many troubles I've been having, I believe it has been a wonderful reading. We have challenges, but we managed to read for 1 hour. Now, I might be having also a problem with my network, but we might take the next 28 minutes to share our thinking in regards to what you have read. What have you learned? What can you say about the text? And anything you'd like to say about what you read, feel free to come in and share with us in this last session. We ought to have read for 1 hour, they discussed for 1 hour. Based on challenges we've been having, I believe we have read for 1 hour, 20 minutes or 15 minutes. So yeah, we are free to share our thinking. What do you learn out of this? Or what do you like to share with us out of the whole reading? Anybody who is ready can go first. Yes, Taiwo?
So the first thing I want to establish is that the problem is clearly not Africans, because if we say that the problem is Africans, then there's no solution, right? Because we cannot change ourselves. So I just want to establish that for all of us, that the problem is not our people. It has to do with the political system. That's the first thing I want to establish. So in that sense, we need to look at what is the political structure of countries that work, countries that are not deemed to be vampire states or coconut republics. How are they structured? Okay, what is their political system like? And one of the things that's very evident from what it read is power seems to be concentrated in the hands of the vampire elites, in the hands of the coconut heads. So power is concentrated. It looks like they control the entire political machinery. They control the security apparatuses. So in other words, it seems to me like devolving power away from them, not having the ruling elite or a leader have all the power. That seems to be one potential solution. And now how to arrive at that it's probably something else to discuss, probably much more difficult. So let me just yield to other people. Thank you.
Yes, Brother Taiwo. In fact, what you are alluding to is also discussed as central power being the problem in the future. We'll come across it, and proposal of decentralizing power has been also discussed in the next text as we will go along it. But yeah, thank you for also identifying that the problem is not only African. Examples have been given across the globe, which means the system failed all over. Thank you for that. Anybody else want to come in? Sawindok? Sawindok? I can't hear Sawindok. Anybody else want to come in? To share with us what you've read or what you can say about the text in general, feel free. Anybody? Sister Tapua, would you like to say something?
Yes. What struck me was I was just held in awe, because when you put all these corrupt examples of coconut states and republics, and it's incredible. The system is not working. This whole system should not be. And I think, like my brother suggested, we need to look at where there's relative, something that works, because the concentration of power, it was like I was listening to the experiences that we've had in Zimbabwe of how elections are rigged, of how there's manipulation, there's all sorts. It's things that we have lived through, and it's the struggles that we are facing in terms of how do we get through this. You try and establish electoral reform, but the electoral reforms are, I mean, right now in Zimbabwe, we've got a situation where the head of the Anti-Corruption Commission has just, or the past head has qualifications that are purported to have come from Norway, a PhD that doesn't exist, from a university that doesn't exist. She was referenced by people whose qualifications do not match in with any university anywhere. And it tells us that the situation that our country is in is because we're led by people who don't know what they're doing. Because if the qualifications that they purport to have are fake, what hope have we? Oh, anyway, I think I'll stop there for now and listen to what others have to say.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. Brother Dumisani?
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. There are many dimensions to this. I'll take a little bit from what Taiwo has said and my sister who just finished. There's an example that I find interesting. Maybe some of you have heard it before I even go to the analysis of what we has been read. You know, they say if you put in a bowl 50 black ants and 50 red ants in a bowl, they will just coexist nicely without any trouble. But if you take that bowl and you shake it very hard, the black ants will immediately think that the red ones are the troublemakers, and the red ants will think that the black ones are, and they'll fight and kill each other. In this thing of ours, we need to go back and understand who is shaking the bowl. When we are looking at the red ants or the black ants, we are looking at the current situation of the guys who are running our system, the ones that are voting. They are just ants inside to say, who is shaking the bowl? We must know that in our analysis, we must look at inside the bowl, what is happening, those dynamics, which Taiwo has said, the system is not working, and then go out. So that at least in our analysis, we are not like small kids who are doing an analysis in some university, who are just looking at internal, the ends. We look even outside to say, who is shaking the ends? Maybe starting with the ends. We know now USAID and everybody else that they've been doing it for years. Gaddafi has been killed. That's outside. Who is shaking the ends? So that while we're dealing with the internal, we must know that there's a bigger force that is shaking this thing. Okay, I'm going inside the bowl, the system itself, to say the system, like I always said, that is loaded. When the system is loaded in this analysis, it says, hey, one is a reference, the play. That system is loaded such that whoever, even one of us today, can be voted in. The system is such that will make you fail or will make you corrupt, because there will be media and everybody else who corrupt. And so there's no way that you'll win, because that system, if you are gambling in dice, the dice is loaded such that it will always trick you, meaning that you'll always have whatever number that is configured to happen. Yes, it's true. Most of our guys will put them there, they get corrupt because they want to amass and do everything. The funny thing is that those guys, our guys who have been put there, by that very system, they've made them into, made sure that they win. They made sure that our electoral commissions make them win. They make sure that all that has been made sure that even the charges make them win. So that that's why I'm saying the system makes you corrupt itself. We have to deal with the system to say this so-called democratic election system, it's a problem. Funny, because it only happens maybe in Africa and a few South Americans where we're noting this. We're not seeing it talked a lot in Europe, talked a lot in terms of the Americas, the system. Such that as if they are clean. Let's look at the analysis here. One talks in each one of this. Somebody takes one paragraph about the country and then summarize it as a coconut or a banana. One paragraph. When the country is run by many dimensions, you just take one paragraph. This judge did this corrupt. This what do the coconut. to say in our analysis, we have to be broad and smarter now because we know that we are dealing with the media and some of these entities that are funded to spearhead something so that we look much more broad. Yes, our guys are corrupt, our guys are doing that, but we must also be aware of the fact that the system is making sure, because there's nothing here saying in our analysis that French has been taking this and they've been taking the resources, nothing. We just talk our guys who are corrupt. Is true. We see that they kill, they do, but nothing talking about the one who's shaking the system. Besides that, we are the bad ones and everything, which I agree, but who is shaking the bow? And the other part that I wanted to look at is the language that is used. Corruption. What? If let's look at the case in point now in America. This Trump and this guy, Elon Musk, they say corruption, they do this, but that word has never been used. The language that is used. They wouldn't say corruption. So corruption is only us. Look at the language that is terrorist, us. There would be terrorist there. So that even the language that we use, we must check it, because that language seems to be saying we are the worst off and somebody else is a clean one. But the unfortunate part is that we are the ones who do that analysis and research, because they won't fund you. If you do, I'm doing a lot of research myself, by the way. I mean, I'm associated with one serious academic institution. You won't be funded if you were to go to that research. The research that will be funded is the one somehow that reinforces that we are the West of the West. The language that is used. Coconut, banana, what? So that we are the West, the same language wouldn't apply anywhere else. They would say, yeah, they've been more funding. To us, is corruption. That's corruption. No, it funded more or less, something like that. So, and obviously, the last part, which before I finish, is that some of the strategies I'm talking now, the one who's shaking the bowl. The one who's shaking the bowl, so that we inside find ourselves fighting and doing all this, which is realistic. They have a strategy where they send an advisor. Advisors advise you who would have been helped to win. If you don't listen to the advisors, they bring the economists who will tell you how that's the second leg. The economists who advise you on how to run the country. And the last one, if you don't listen to that, they say they call the J-calls. The J-calls kill you. So some of our guys go in there to make money. Some are afraid to die. All what I'm saying is that in our analysis now, we must be bright enough to look at the outside and look at the inside. Try to deal with the inside, but we know that the outside is also impacting. Going back to Tayo, what he said, that the system itself is loaded as a die, that the dice to say it will always land with a 6 or a 7. I mean, a 6 or a 5, or whatever it is. No, that's my contribution. I'm done.
I think the host has dropped off. It's just all of us co-hosts now.
Hello?
I don't know if other people want. Yes.
Yeah, the host has just called me. He had a blackout, another session of a blackout. So he has given us permission. We continue. We just discuss randomly. And then after that, we close the meeting. There has been a lot of rain in Kenya. The meteorological department predicted heavy rains in Kenya, especially in Nairobi this month. So this could be what is affecting on the other side.
Oh, I wanted to think those are the states of the...
Yes. So I've made a small observation concerning the so-called vampire states. There's a reading we have just made that the most remarkable aspect of despotism is the rapid deterioration of the institution of government. Governments, as it is known in the West, does not exist in countries ruled by despots. That was under the classification of vampire states. Complete destruction, complete fallout, complete decomposition of the state. You know, that's what is a vampire? A vampire is a mythological creature that essentially attacks and sucks out blood from the system. So it seems like when you have a despot in power, characterized by the vampire metaphor, that despot essentially sucks out the economic system, sucks out the political system, and eventually reduces the state to nothing. What do you think, brothers? No wonder they are called vampires. They come in to destroy, to suck out the essence of the state. What do you think?
Can I come in?
Yes, please, Dumisa. Dumisa, come in.
Thank you very much. I think it's an apt description of what's happened, but bearing in mind what our brother has said, that we need to look at both inside the jar and outside. We need to understand that this is working for someone's advantage. In the Zimbabwean context, for example, we've often said we fought against white supremacy and the exploitation, and our resources, the wealth of the country was taken out. Now, because of our mental state and lack of awareness, we're actually now taking out the resources ourselves. In other words, the leaders that we're talking about, who've been labeled as coconut this or that, are now the vehicle that's been used to take the wealth out so that they continue to supply those guys. And like my brother has said, no one is mentioning the Swiss government or the Swiss banks that accept the corrupt funds. I mean, just the process of sending money, for example, from the United Kingdom to Zimbabwe or into Africa, you produce IDs, you produce things for £2,000, £1,000. It's like you're sending 2 million. But the question is, how come they accept all this money and still dare to point fingers and say, this is what's happening to, and these words, banana republic and coconut, they're all tropical kind of names. Why don't they call them something else? It's a label that's stuck and a label that's meant to dehumanize and lessen and make us feel terrible. I'm not defending what the leaders do, but I think like my brother said, we also need to be aware of the language that's being used. So let's think of who is getting all this wealth. Where are the Nigerian coconut heads putting the money, and who's accepting it? And why are they accepting it? Why are they not obliged to return it to the countries where they're getting it from? That's my contribution.
Okay. In as much as brothers and sisters, we will wish to look outside and claim, definitely, foreign entities are playing an important role in ensuring that Africa continues not to develop. Nevertheless, the fact that you are tempted and you accept to be tempted means that you must take responsibility for accepting the temptation. Let's look, for example, at a classic case of the country Rwanda. We all know that Rwanda receives billions of dollars from Germany, from United Kingdom, from Belgium, even from France and many other countries. We all know that Paul Kagame takes the money. He used that money to build the Rwandan army, train the Rwandan army, and at the same time concentrates power on himself. Kagame could have said no to this. He appoints 99.9% of members of his community, and his family has recently taken his own brother to the military academy he himself trained in the 1970s and 80s before he became the dictator of that country. So I ask myself a question. Yes, France is playing a role. Yes, Germany is playing a role. Yes, the United States CIA groomed and trained him. But here's the question. Why does Kagame and his people accept this? Why can't we revolt against the temptation? Why is it that, why are we not willing to walk the narrow road and say, we don't want interference from Western countries? In as much as we are tempted, why are we not willing? Why can't Kagame say no to Germany? Don't send me your money. I don't want to rapidly develop my country, Rwanda. On your hand, I will not invade Eastern Congo because you want resources. Why can't we say no? Over to you, brothers and sisters. Dumisani, back to you.
Yes, I hear you. because you are saying when Germany, yes, we know Germany is doing it. Yes, no, that's a problem. Is that they shouldn't, if they were principled, they shouldn't. They are
Why
the
are we
ones
accepting?
who are, yeah, I hear you. All what I'm saying is that while they are the ones who point a finger at African countries and South American and some of the few Asians as principles, my sister here just said, even Switzerland, to say they are the ones who later would say their countries, because when we talk about this corruption, their countries are not mentioned. They should be mentioned on the same breath, or if not, they should be leading in terms of not doing what is wrong. Because if they find a dictator, if they find this, they cannot be looking on the other side. They're finding themselves funding a dictator, like we're saying. Yes, internally we'll deal with our dictator. If it's Museveni or we are doing with Kagame or whatever, yes, it's the internal dictator that we must come up with a plan. But the point is, they support that one with all the monies, the protection, and everything, such that it makes it difficult for us to fight this tin pot dictator alone, because it's supported by them, by the big guns. The point is, they're not making our life easy. So if we're talking corruption in the broad scheme of things, they should be taking the bulk in terms of this. Yes, I agree. Whether Zimbabwe, Rwanda, or Uganda, we have people that, or let me say, those leaders that we have to deal with, because they have been there. If you talk, Kagame, like you have mentioned, or Museveni, or any other, who we have to deal with, who even, most of them, who even rig elections so that they are always there for life. That we know, where we say the system is the problem.
Let's hear from Tapua. She just raised
Okay.
her hand, please.
Okay.
And then after that, Simon and Gabriel and Samuel. Yes. Tapua.
I think that we've got a better chance of pressurizing the so-called democratic countries that put themselves at the pedestal of being the champion. Because if you live in the West, in a European country, and a shop or somebody is seen as buying things that have been produced in shady situations or exploitation, or people rebel against buying from such shops. If we are going to be successful, we need to highlight what the governments there are doing. They are heading immoral governments that accept money that's been stolen. In other words, they are colluding with thieves, and they've got to be labeled as such. And if it is possible, if there are people who have the know-how, we need to start campaigning against those governments.
Sure.
Then it means we're going to kill the lifeline that our leaders are using, because they find it easy to siphon money out of our countries because it's easily acceptable there. If those countries that are accepting money, or the companies that are accepting that money, refuse to touch that money, that it makes it difficult for them to find where to put the money. And therefore, there might be hope for us. So I think working out a strategy to deal with those governments and those companies is the way out.
Sure. Let's hear from Simon. Simon?
Yes, thank you. My contribution is just like the names which we give each other. That is where the challenge is. And sometimes we are distracted to look at each other with a negative attitude. If you want to see the currently, we can talk about this and this and this, but look at the current scenario where corruption lies. Look at Trump. Now he's saying he's buying Gaza. He has corrupted, he has taken all the monies which were put for aid, and is now all the monies in his pocket. No one is talking about corruption and the misuse of resources, but everybody is saying that is redirecting. But when it was the African leader who wanted to look at that, that becomes corruption, and they are plotting how they can eliminate him. If you look at Traore, what he's doing for his country, what are they saying? They are not praising him. They are looking at the way when he said we Africans should unite and have one currency. They have already planned the German. How can we eliminate him within the next 12 months? But now Trump is there and is just misappropriating the money. And the little that we take, if you are my brother, then if you take $1, I said, you are very corrupt. You are so corrupt. You need to be out. We should remove you. We are asked to, we are given just peanuts to go out and shout and demonstrate, to demonstrate to my fellow sister, my fellow brother. And the one who is very corrupt is using the corrupt money to try and make coyas so that he can continue to exploit us, take more out of us, and this is what is happening in Africa.
Okay,
And
Barry.
as Africans, we not look into the barrel like what my other brother said. Let's look outside who is shaking us, and let's stop that to be shaken so that we continue to prevail in tranquility. We continue to prevail to look at each other and mingle smoothly so that we don't fight amongst ourselves. We fight with the one who is causing the coil. This is what is happening now. This is my contribution. We need
Let's hear
unity.
from Barry.
We need it.
Let's hear from Barry before our line goes off. Barry.
Yeah, greetings, comrade, and thank you so much. Hello, are you hearing? Hello?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, my contribution is I will contribute on what the sister was saying. I think the problem here is our leaders, ourselves, and not the West. Like the example of Kagame receiving all those monies, all those billions in building his country. Why not, say we are not interested in this? Africa has everything that it takes, that it needs to develop itself. So the problem is there is no hygiene in our politics. There is no hygiene in what the leaders are doing. The brother talk about Traore. I really like what he is doing. They are not praising him because he did not accept what the West is saying, and he's really doing great. He's doing well, and these are the type of people that we need. So the problem here is our own leaders, our own people. That we need to handle first. We need to talk to. We need to change our attitudes first. Thank you.
Okay, Bahati, have your say. Bahati, is Bahati online? Taiwo, can you give us a final say?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
I think that clearly, if we were to dissect the problems of these vampire states and the coconut republics, a few patterns emerge. One of them is that they have concentration of power, right? Clearly, they have the power at the leadership level, at the presidency level. They control the security apparatus. They control the election apparatus. They control the courts. So that right there tells us at least the mechanisms that they use to control the people and get away with corruption. The examples of not just African countries, but also communist countries have been given. So concentration of power is one thing that does not work, because when the power resides in the hands of the few, then the population is unable to really rebel, because they basically repress the people. Another pattern that we might want to look at is if the entire society does not have political consensus. In other words, is it really possible for these people, this elite, which is really relatively small compared to the population, is it possible for them to suppress an entire country? If that entire country is that if that entire country is one and rise up. Very rarely can they do that. A few cases where they can do that is North Korea. North Korea, the people are one, but the mechanisms, the apparatus of the dictatorship is so vast, they're spying on each other. So the North Koreans cannot rise up. But in most other countries, the mechanisms that I feel that the vampire elites and the coconut heads get away with is they don't have a country where the people are one. The people can easily be split. They can use them to divide each other. So that's another mechanism that I see that these vampire elites and the colonial republics, they get away with the fact that the people cannot rise together as one to oppose their governments. It has been said that some of these vampire states and coconut republics are held up by foreign countries empowering them to continue. That is because it is in the interest of Western countries most times for us to be destabilized, because if we are destabilized, it's easier for them to, through the elites, get access to what they want. They let them steal money from our countries, put the money in their bank accounts. In return, maybe they get access to mine mineral resources from our country. And by keeping us destabilized, we're not able to compete with them on the global stage to create goods that we can use to manufacture. So they take our resources for cheap, sell us finished goods for more expensive. So clearly the Western countries benefit from keeping us destabilized. But if you notice, the fact that most of the countries in the bottom list of all of these indices, they are all results of Western colonization. So we have to question whether the colonies that we call African countries today that were created by the colonial powers, we have to ask ourselves, is that the ideal structure of our countries? Thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes, Tobua, let me say something before you jump in. Yeah. You see, if I'm bitten by a mosquito, if I'm bitten by a mosquito myself, if a mosquito comes in, I live in the tropics, I live in Lake Victoria, I'm bitten by a mosquito or several mosquitoes and I catch malaria. The first thing I must do before I actually attack the mosquito, that insect, that vector, is to cure myself of malaria. Once I'm cured of malaria, I can then ask myself a question: how did the mosquito reach me? And why did I get sick? I got sick because there was a parasite inside of me that was eating my body and making me sick. Who brought the parasite? The parasite was brought in by a vector called the mosquito. So then I start coming up with strategies to deal with the mosquito. So the mosquito is the foreign countries, the foreign governments. The parasite is our dictators, our tyrants, our vampires. So the first thing we need to do, brothers, as we wind down, is let's think of how we can destroy the parasite circulating in our body so that we can cure ourselves, take responsibility for the disease that has been injected in us. Then once we are cured of the virus, of the parasite, we can now look around, and as someone has just said, we look around and we start creating mechanisms to destroy the vector, the mosquito. But if we are sick in ourselves, how do we expect to fight effectively against the mosquito? Topua, you're next. Let's have your view.
Yeah, I think I'm going to add on to what you just said, because my question was, would we fare better if Africa operated as one? Would we maybe reduce the chances of the exploitation that takes place? Because like you're saying, your hand is bitten by a mosquito, but the head is covered. So if we get some kind of net to cover the whole of Africa, would we then possibly reduce the
and what would that net be?
power that some of these people have?
mitigation mechanisms now. You're talking brilliantly.
Yes.
That is what we call mitigation. When you have cured yourself of malaria, you try to find defenses. First of all, you can decide to create a net for yourself. So let's hear, what could this net be? Brilliant, to me, Sandy. What could this net be, Sister Tupua?
Can I come in, Chair? Thanks.
Oh, please.
The unfortunate part with the story of a mosquito is that you are dealing with a mosquito that has mastered this thing for hundreds of years. So that's why the issue, when Tapua ends his story by saying we must look at I've just forgot it, just it slipped my mind. The issue is that the very same mosquito that you are talking about, it's so well developed, and it's the one that has perfected itself. Oh yeah, the Tapua one was the colonization that those countries are there. He said we must now investigate if the reason why all the countries at the lower end are as a result. No, that says colonization hasn't gone. That's all what he's saying, that these guys haven't left. When we're saying they are shaking from outside, they're saying they're still controlling. That's why President Traore and every other person will be hated, because he's getting rid of the one who's shaking, or the mosquito particularly. We're dealing with a mosquito that, even when we are fixing our symptoms inside, is not stopping, is continuing to strike and come up with many ways to deal with it.
Let me invite Sir Windhoek. Sir Windhoek. Can you invite Sir Windhoek to say something? He has not spoken yet.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening. First,
evening.
Yes, thank you. I would like to tell you that I'm from Pan-Africanist French. My English is a little better. When I make mistakes, I say pardon, apologize. I follow what you are speaking. Bon, my name first is Bahati Emmanuel. I live in France for a long time, but I'm coming from Congo. I'm happy to hear that we have the same topic, we have the same problem of corruption. I don't know if today was the subject about corruption, or it's in general the problem from Black people of our country. I don't know the subject of today, the topic of today.
We are discussing a book called, there's a book we are discussing. We've been discussing this book for the past almost 3 weeks. The book is called Defeating Dictators. So in this book, we have identified that, first of all, Africa has a problem of leadership, leaders that concentrate power in a few hands, bringing the ethnicities. And these leaders have been classified as vampires. They have also been called coconuts. Yeah, in essence, it's not just in Africa. Other countries like Czechoslovakia, Russia, and many other countries in the Middle East, like Saudi Arabia, have also been classified as such. But for our context, we were discussing the issue of dictatorship in Africa. So eventually, we're going to discuss solutions to it. But currently, we are in the process of finding who they are and categorizing who they are, and generally analyzing who they are. That's where we are in chapter 1 of that book, Defeating Dictators.
Okay, thank you very much. What I can say about dictators, or many president or authority who are lead the African people, are coming from, are imposed by the Western people. They are not a president. The color is ours, but the mind and what they do is not for us, because they are Western who put them on the power, on the authority. That's why now, when they arrived at the power, they take the whole country, the property of country, the power of all country, they take them as their own house. and they do what they can do. As, for example, in West Africa, what they do is now good. We must enter in a populations to tell them that that person who was imposed by the Western must go away. And even if in the future, or we try to speak with another patriotic Pan-Africans to make the law, when the president make 1-2 mandates, is finished. He must go away. Even if they do the best, he must first go away, and we change the character. And we must also teach people that the country is not for authority. The country belongs to all people, the poor, the rich, the ignorant, the person who was intelligent, and we must first to teach and to work with the people to show them that the country is own country. They must also do the best so that the leaders come from the people. When they begin to go left, we must put away. Because many Africans, we have the fear.
Okay, sure. So you say that these leaders are imposed from outside. That is a consensus from every corner. But Sister Topwa has said something, brothers, and we don't want to discuss that. As we went down, we discussed the mosquito. The mosquito has come in. The mosquito is biting me. I have malaria. Now I need to cure myself. Now she has talked about something, a net. If I cure myself, curing myself means identifying my disease, my problem, the dictator or the dictators. After I identify the problem, I find a solution. For example, someone, Brother Tawo, actually suggested unity. And Sister Topo has also talked about that unity. From the point of view of the state to Africa, if citizens come together via different means and unite, okay, they have one voice, because one of the tactics the dictator uses is the tactic of the colonialist, divide and rule. They divide us across ethnic lines, they divide us across financial lines. So if the citizen can unite themselves by various means, or alternative leaders can pop in to unite the citizens, the dictator, despite having control of the state, might lose the power, because Vox Populi is Vox Dei. We are the people, we have the voice of God. So if we come together by various means, we might end up defeating the dictator and removing from power. But Topo has discussed something. How do we protect ourselves from the attack of that mosquito, the foreign power? We create a net. So Topo, what is the net? Can you tell us what the net was or is?
The net we can use is what we are doing now to make sensibilization, to enter in the population, to be together with another people from another countries. For example, when you are in Kenya, you want to talk about what bullshit the authority do there. Maybe the person from Uganda can do that. The person from Nigeria can do that. The person from UK of United States. We must to be together, to be splendid, and also all that dictator. When, for example, I say from Uganda, from Rwanda, from Congo, Brazzaville, and other, we speak them, we make them on the list. On the list, know that we have the most cause, and we must also to take care, and also not only to attack the president only, but also the family. The families, we tell them that what they do, they must pay that. And we must try also to teach the people and ourselves how we can go out of the fear, because we are feared. For example, when I say about Congo, about Rwanda, about Kenya, I appreciate Kenya first because now, you know, in the last 10 years or 20 years, the Western used the president from Rwanda. Every time they choose the president they used, when they wanted to put him away, they take another one. You know that they want to put Mr. Ruto.
Mr. Ruto, yes, they want to replace him as the dictator of East Africa.
Yes. But when the Kenyans, you do, I'm very, not me alone, the whole Africa was appreciated how the people of Kenya go to Ruto say, we don't know this as economic adjustment. And also, I respected the president because he heard the people. He said, now, even if the Western wanted that, I stop. That's when you get the Mustico in that net. We can, when we are together and we are many, we can get the solution. That's why I think that we can
Let's go to
continue.
Tapua.
Yes.
Tapua.
Yes.
I want to hear from you. The net. What is the net?
Okay. Yes. For me, the net has a few parts to it. To start with, we need to find ways of stopping the people who are coming in from outside to manipulate us. One of them I've suggested already. We need to start pressurizing companies by name and countries that support the dictators that we have. We know where they are putting their money. Let's find ways of outing them. And then secondly, the net has to be something that covers the whole of Africa, because the more we are together, the stronger we are. So I'm a Pan-Africanist and believe that we need to really look at ourselves as one country. You cannot say my arm has been bitten by a mosquito and my ear is fine. Because if Malawi is not working, it means the whole of Africa is not working. And people who come to exploit Africa or African countries, I don't even know whether to call them African countries anymore. I just want Africa to be one country.
Yes.
They come and speak to little Swaziland or little Malawi and give them this or that, give Zimbabwe this or that, and we're all divided. So we need to find a way of us being one unit in a way that protects us. So the net is not just to protect the people inside, but to protect us from predators as well.
So, sister, what? Okay.
Important. The last and I think the most important is mindset, because we've been colonized to the core. Our leaders have been educated in Western ways, and we don't have the confidence of coming up with something that does not look like the democracy that we've been left behind, which we can't operate and we are failing to use effectively. I think we need to find a way of re-educating ourselves, turning our identities and making sure that we're confident as Africans that we're the oldest on earth and we've been here forever. Therefore, we need what we want to work should work for us. It's not supposed to work according to the West. Let's have that confidence and strike out and be who we want to be. So those three things.
Brother Taiwo, before I summarize.
And then cycling, yes.
Brother Taiwo.
Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Yes, brother, let's hear your voice on this matter. Sister has told us we have a net, and Bahati has told us we have a net. They have described the net in the following terms. The brother has told us that we in Africa must have a pressure, population pressure, civic pressure. He praised Kenya for what we are doing. We are generating civic pressure across Africa. Sister has said we must unite ourselves in voice and in mindset. What's your view?
Yes. So I like Sister Tapua's suggestion about identifying the commercial entities and maybe naming and shaming them. as a way to maybe weaken Western support. A lot of these Western companies that are operating in our countries, they are operating from Western countries, and so maybe there's something we can do to pressure them to not support the political leaders who are basically taking advantage of us because they have all these powers.
How?
I think
Let's
something
go to
we
the
should
how.
expand upon some more.
Yeah.
I don't have it how now, but maybe Sister Tapua can expand later on. But I have one concern and one question. When I hear about Africans uniting, which is a very good idea, which I like, I also question the fact that in any given country, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Kenya, whether it's Ghana, the ethnic groups in those countries are not united. So if they're not united in those countries, how do we expect Africa with all these ethnic groups to unite? That is always a question for me.
Let me say something before you continue. This is why Sister has discussed something very important about mindset. What is mindset, bro? You see, we as Africans, we are diverse in terms of culture, we are diverse in terms of ethnicity, we are diverse in terms of linguistics. But the mind, we are human beings also. We're not animals, we are human beings. So as human beings, it is possible for us to have a unifying mindset, a unifying philosophy, if I'm interpreting our sister correctly, a worldview, a way of seeing things. If we, through our social media, through our conversations, through our reading of books, can craft or create a uniform worldview, don't you think that is one step of creating our safety net? Because whenever I speak something in Kenya and you speak something in Namibia or Zimbabwe, and another one speaks something in Uganda or Congo, and we resonate on the same frequency, don't you think that will be one solution? By changing the mindset?
I think that is an easy, it's an easy thing to imagine. But let me say this from what I've read. There is the human beings exhibit two norms: moral norms and social norms. So the moral norms have to do with our understanding of what is morality, what is good and bad. Most human beings, unless you're deranged or you're mentally sick, we all know what is good and right. We know that it is wrong to steal somebody's property. We know it is wrong to kill. So moral norms are okay for all human beings. But our social norms are contextual. In other words, the same politicians who steal money in Nigeria or in Kenya or Uganda, when they are in the UK or in the United States, they know that they cannot get away with that. So the social context to exist in those countries, they modulate it to change. So I don't think when we talk about the mentality of the African, it is shaped by our environment. Most people, for instance, if a mother takes their child to the hospital to get treated, okay, and the hospital demands bribe for the mother to get treatment for the daughter, the mother will pay the bribe, not because she likes to pay the bribe, but that is, she doesn't want her daughter to die. So that mother is not corrupt. That mother is simply reacting to the requirement of the system. So I think what I'm trying to say is that our mental state is contextual. We're fine. But the way most Africans operate today, we're operating because we want to survive in the environment we are in. If you're driving your car, the police stops you, you have not done anything wrong, but they ask for bribe. If you don't give them the bribe, they can impound your car. So what do? You give them the bribe. It's not because you're corrupt.
Let me ask you a question, sir.
Yes.
1 minute, sister. Yes. Let me ask our brother, very important points you are raising. Now, if we are in an environment, a system which is making us corrupt, we the citizens, we African citizens, give me a brief. What do we do? We need a solution so that we can move to chapter 2 of the book. What do you do?
So let me share something very quickly.
Before Topo comes in.
Yeah, I read some research. Okay.
I wanted to come in on the point that tribes.
Sister Tapua, just give me 30 seconds.
1 minute.
Please. 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So sure. I read some research. Here's what the research says. The research says that in even corrupt countries in Africa, okay, corrupt countries. All the leaders are corrupt. Yet, the ethnic groups, they prefer to vote for a leader from the ethnic group because they think he will not treat them as badly as a leader from a different ethnic group, even though the leader is corrupt. So in other words, our problem, we talked about unity, but that unity is in context of people banding together to protest corruption. But when you have power, people competing for power, you now have the ethnic groups in that country competing for the same position. That is a problem. That's why I said the colonies that were created that turned into African countries, are they the viable entities that we need to protect? To me, it is showing that it is not the case. So we need to actually review that and say, yes, we can achieve Pan-Africanism. But Pan-Africanism, I think, cannot be achieved when we have not achieved Pan-Nigerianism. We have not achieved Pan-Kenyanism. How can we achieve Pan-Africanism when we haven't solved these problems?
I agree.
So let me pause now. Thank you.
Sister Topwa, please come in. Please come in.
Right. I think what we're dealing with is we need to sort our mindset out. Look at Europe. Europe is able to work as one. How many groups are there? How many tribes do they have?
Several. The Germans, the French.
They have. But they're able to, when it comes to the crunch, put those differences aside. We're not saying people should be less Nigerian or less Igbo or less any other group. We are saying we've got to establish areas where we have a common interest for our own survival. Because these people who put the boundaries that we have today are using those boundaries to manipulate us. United States of America is a United States.
Yes.
State, but they work as one.
Can I agree with you?
Why can't we work as one?
Can I agree with you?
Thank you.
For example,
Yes.
we're giving example because we are about to wind out. When the United States, after slavery, I'm talking about after slavery, in the late 18th century, we had the Germans coming in, the Italians coming in, the French coming in. What happened? What is it that made that white country united? There was a policy that was instituted in the country to ensure that everyone speaks the English language, reads common literature, which is the American literature, and generally creates a mindset of Americanism. I am an American. Now, let's go to Africa. Those are things we can copy because we are all human beings. In Kenya currently, there's a movement in Kenya, which is also a movement I've seen in Africa, where first of all in Kenya, we are saying we need to speak one language, which is the Kiswahili, no longer English. Right now I'm speaking to you in English, but the moment we are done, I'm back to Swahili. Secondly, there has been a movement to listen to Kenyan music and also to read Kenyan books. By even in the curriculum itself, as we speak currently, Kenyan books are more and more being introduced, and the readership of Kenyan authors is increasing. Now, the Gen Z of Kenya, who are trained in that system 10, 20 years ago, are the ones that are resisting the system now. So I want to agree with you, Topwa. It is a very long process, but the process of mindset is the first step we must take. Even in our forum, what we're currently doing is we're reading a book by an African, are we not? We are reading his ideas, his concepts. He's an African brother teaching us and telling us about dictators. We're not being taught about this idea by a foreign author. So gradually, it might take 10 years, it might take 20 years, we'll eventually mutate our thinking and start having one thinking country to country. So eventually, we are going to arrive at the position Towa has been asking about. We are going to reach the point where all of us in the next 10 to 20 years will be thinking about the same ideas and concepts. And so therefore we end up defeating our dictators. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, brother, I can see your hand is up. Brother Tawo is back again.
I think Brother Bahati should speak first.
Okay, Brother Bahati.
Okay, thank you again. Thank you again. You speaking about colonialism. You speaking from about America, French, Dutch, Italian. They
and Kenya.
And Kenya. Yes. One is speak about we must have the own language, Kiswahili. Me also, I like it. You know better, maybe you know that the Gaddafi was killed also because even if we speak Arabic, he don't know Kiswahili, but in the last meeting they make about how to be Africa independent, they choose, I think, 3 languages. They choose first Kiswahili, and they choose Bambala, they choose Lingala, and another language I don't remind. The Kiswahili is very spoken even if in Germany, in Vatican, in America, Washington, they speak Swahili. In the main country of Kenya, Zimbabwe, Congo, in whole, I think that the Kiswahili is the 64th language who are spoken in the world. That also in a topic you must impose with authority. When any person speak about the Africa United, I tell you that Africa United is not for us, it's for the Western, because it's the Western who built it, it's the Western who give the directive or the direction how they can make the meeting like those, something like that. Now, as before, in what we are teaching in the French countries, it's to be free and to bring again the kingdom, how before they were uncles wa babu wetu wa zamani, vile wazazi wetu vile wa babu wetu walikuwa wanapatiana heshima. The wise was the person who must lead the country or the kingdom. Now, today, the person who go to learn to the abroad, Western, how to steal, how to kill the culture, how to steal the resource, all things, they are them, they put on the power. Because when we have before, as in village, the person who was wise, it's him who must lead another.
Sure.
He must be true in what he do. That's why we try to avoid this system from Western. We try to call back with our uncles or our ancestors, how they was leading the country with the wise.
Let's give Tawo.
Yes.
Hello, brother. Let's give Tawo some say, because we are winding down. Parting shots, brother Tawo. Yes, parting shots.
So
Everyone,
I want to quickly mention what Sister Tapua said about in Europe. The one thing to note is that the European countries, Germany is for Germans, France is for French, Italy, Italians, Norway, Norwegians, Sweden, Swedish people. All of their countries are named for their language groups. But Nigeria is not a language. Kenya is not a language. Tanzania is not a language. So you find that the reason why European countries work is because the countries are sovereign around language lines. But the colonies left behind by our colonizers are not along language lines. That's why we have internal problems. That's why we cannot unite in each country. That's why when you have multiple ethnic groups vying for political power in the office, you cannot agree to choose the right candidate. So we must analyze these things for what they are. Now, there can be Pan-Africanism, but you cannot achieve Pan-Africanism when in each country you're still vying for power with ethnic competition. So I just want to point this thing out in an analysis, okay? So you don't have in any European countries, you don't have French people and German people fighting for power. No, they don't. So this is very important for us to see. Thank you very much.
Parting shots. Okay, let me give a parting shot before I give the final say to Sister Tapua. My view is this, brother. In as much as we have challenges regarding colonialism and multiculturalism of language and this and that, We are now waking up to realize we can always do something for ourselves. We have said that we have a disease. We know that disease is inside of us. We're going to cure it. Our disease might be ethnicity. Our disease might be language and all that. We understand that we are in this position today. So what we need to do is not look too much to the past and do something today. And I agree with Sister Topwa. The first thing we must do, because now we have commonalities, we have common media, we have got common methods of communication and the like, is this. We need to find a mechanism across Africa, whether we're going to call it Pan-Africanism, Afrocentrism, or what, to bring common ideas of Africanism, self-determination, and arm ourselves to fight our dictators through these ideas. I would wish to agree completely with Sister Topwa. We need to create intellectual weapons to deal with our own problems. And then later on, we can sharpen those weapons and then defeat the powers from the outside who are creating mayhem inside. Parting shots, Sister Topwa, before Tumasani closes our session.
I'm going to gently ask.
Parting shots,
that
yes.
When we're talking about Africa, can we avoid using the word can't? Because
Please.
if we say we can't because of tribes, we already put a block in our minds.
Please, thank you.
When we're saying we're going to unite as Africa, we are not saying you're not going to be Igbo anymore. A strong Africa is dependent on strong Igbo identity. A strong Africa is dependent on strong Kikuyu identity. Because once we get those things in place, we respect one another for who we are. But what we were left with after colonialism was people trying to destroy my Igbo-ness, my Shona-ness, my Kikuyu-ness, so that I get lost. So, like my Congolese brother is saying, we need to go back in order to move forward. We need to be strong in who we are and be confident that when I'm speaking as a Shona person, I'm not saying an Igbo is inferior.
Thank you.
Yes, we are just understanding one another. And if we add in there a common language, which we're going to work at, then we are there. Because we need to find a way. We have to find a way. Thank you.
Let's give Dumisani a parting shot. Dumisani, brother, please.
Thank you so much.
Parting shot.
Yeah, I'm looking at the mosquito or the antenna.
That's where we are.
The things that we may have to look at. One, I agree with Tabua, who talked about strengthening our intellectual capacity first as Africans. That one is important. The second one is that one of saying we strengthen now, dealing with the mosquito now, we strengthen our social movements, such that these social movements are not that directly linked to political, but is more social, so that we are able to deal with these dictators and everything. So strengthening the social is the numbers, so that we get more numbers to be able, hopefully, to deal with the dictators. But the last one on dealing with the system of democracy, which we aspire this much, but seems not to be working, we may have to review and look at our kingdoms or empires. Besides that, we juxtapose these political parties and everything vis-a-vis our empires or kingdoms that we have, because there we have a clear system. We know how it's respected from the kingdoms and we may have to look at it, but it may be longer term, but the immediate one is the social one, where we deal with the social now to deal with the devil that we see in front of us currently. Thanks, Chair.
Oh, where is he?
Brother, on where she's not speaking.
Taking with us.
Do you mind? Do you mind if I make one comment?
Okay. So let me say something briefly before I give. Tao, yes, I want to give you the last.
I just wanted to make one final comment, if you don't mind. Just one final comment, please. Please.
Yes, I
just want to say that we.
Okay. Yeah, I want you to be the last to speak. Let me say something, and then you finalize. Can I say something and then you finalize? Yes. So, brothers and sisters, the body has many organs and many cells. Heart cell is not liver cell, nor is it the cell in the brain. But yet, all these cells work together for the good of the body. I believe if we have a winning mindset, we can identify ourselves as different cells from Igbo, Taita, Kamba, Shona, but eventually work as one body. And for that to happen, I want to agree with Topwa, parting shot, we must create a uniform or a similar thinking mechanism. Brother War, but summary.
Thank you.
As we went down.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that our Igbo-ness, respecting our Igbo-ness, our Yoruba-ness, our Shona-ness, all of those things, okay, are not the same thing as when we compete, right? For politics, when you have a country where multiple ethnic groups are competing for power, one position, that's where the problem is. You find out that we don't have problem falling in love, Igbo and Yoruba or Igbo and Shona. We don't have problem falling in love. We don't have problem doing business together. But the moment you create a situation whereby a Shona, a Yoruba has to compete with an Igbo, then you have created a situation whereby they cannot choose the right person. And that's our problem. Okay, so we must avoid that situation. So we are one in terms of social interaction, economic interaction. But when it comes to politics, in Europe, you don't find French competing with Germans. You don't find British competing with Germans on politics, right? But they're able to come together when it comes to market economic forces. So we must recognize these things. And so this is very important. We must face reality about the human situation when it comes to competing for political power. We cannot operate that way. Thank you very much.
Bahati, wind down. Bahati, wind down.
Can I come in? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
okay, thank you very much. We are speaking about ethnics. Now I would like to tell you it's the war who are happening today. Before, it's a majority who wins. But now the Western want that the minority must win. When they put minority on the power, the minority cannot lose the majority. It all time call the Western, come help me, come help me. We are speaking Ebo in Nigeria. Some person can also speak Bahima, Tutsi in Uganda, or Bantu in whole Africa. But in this war, when you see what is happening in Ukraine, what happened in Congo, RDC, all things show that the Western must put the weak people or weak ethnics on the power. All time he must call, come and help us. But when we have the majority is before we were speaking about the ancient or the kingdom. It's very important. It's important not to ignore it that we are speaking ethnics, but now there are the war. We have the war of the ethnic, we have the war of economic. We don't speak economic and the property because as you see what was dealing with America, the President Donald Trump.
Okay.
They said in Ukraine, any moment.
Parting shots. Yes.
Yes. They say the problem of Ukraine is not to liberate the people, but it's to steal the gold, what is that? That's why we must now focus how we can protect our property and how we can live together or ethnic for us. Thank you.
Sure. Sister Topwa, give us not only the party shot, but close the meeting for us tonight.
Right.
Sure.
Competition, if we're going to talk about tribes and competition, then we're being very European and Western. The African philosophy is, I am because you are. If we are going to go back to I am because you are, if we're going to be talking of Ubuntu, we are not going to compete to outbeat one another. And I think this is where our turning point needs to be. We need to stop competing but work together to bring Africa together, the rich and the poor, the competent and the incompetent, the intelligent and the not, because fundamentally we are people. So once we start talking about competition between tribes, this competition between tribes was put in place so that we're divided. Let's move away from competition. Let's not even acknowledge it. Let's not give it space. Let's not give people who are trying to raise their flag because they're this or that and put, because can you imagine if we're going to have elections as Africa and Nigeria is choosing a representative for Nigeria to get into the parliament, it automatically dissolves some of these minor divisions that we have in a country and emphasizes the fact that this is a country that.
So what is your parting shot? What is your parting shot? What is your parting shot, sister? Your parting shot?
Philosophy.
Philosophy.
The mind.
Thank you. And here's my parting shot. Through the sharing of books, through common reading of African books, which are written in English, Swahili, and other languages, through common conversations like the one we are having today, I believe one day, in the not so distant future, we are going to have common vibrations. And very soon we are going to defeat our dictators from within, and eventually we're going to defeat our dictators from outside. With that, brothers and sisters, I want to congratulate you for participating in our reading today. And I wish that we start seriously thinking about how we're going to create. The French Revolution began with the wind of thought. After there was the wind of thought, all the other winds were possible, like Sister has told us. Let's attempt to create a wind of thought across Africa, an intellectual revolution across the face of Africa, such that when I speak in Kenya, and another one speaks in Zimbabwe, and another one speaks in Nigeria or in Tunisia, we create a tsunami that is going to wash all the dictators from within, and then later on from without. With that, brothers and sisters, I will wish to close the meeting today. We'll meet next Sunday. What do you think, guys?
Bye, everyone. Have a good evening. Have a good week. Bye.
Please.
Bye,
bye. God bless you all.
God bless you guys. God
A
bless you.
very lovely discussion. Thank you so much. I
We're
think
going
it
to
was
have more.
Africa.
And then, brothers,
Africa.
don't forget we have 2 libraries, and Comrade has a library. Download those books, save them, and read those books. Let's read our authors, please. Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.